Okay, the floor is open for questions.
Good evening. First of all, I welcome you all to Assam.
It's lovely to be here. Thank you.
Yeah, we are happy to have you here. I am Ajinta. I'm an actor here. So I have two questions actually. My questions are a bit selfish since I'm an actor. Uh, I know like what you guys look in actors. They have to be good in acting, and they have to fit into the characters. But what else do you see? I mean, what else do you search in actors while casting?
Imagination and authenticity.
Yeah, I think imagination, authenticity, and a willingness to be vulnerable. You know, because it is a very, I think, being an actor is a very vulnerable thing where you're listening to someone else's thing about what you should be doing and not be doing, and sometimes there can be a resistance to that and certain fear in that, and the fearlessness is, I think, what gives a great performance here. Where an actor is willing to go beyond their own sort of mental boxes.
And surrender, I guess.
Surrender as in?
Surrender. You come in empty, willing to be anything and everything that the story wants you to be instead of
Being myself. Okay. And the second question is, don't you think like the directors should directly cast the actors rather than going through the casting directors? Maybe there's some corruption in between.
Corruption exists at all levels in every profession. But if directors started casting directly, काम मत बढ़ाओ. We've already got a lot going on with our lives. No, this is a process. I mean, casting. I mean, we did not. When I started out as an assistant director 20 years ago, there were no casting directors, as a matter of fact. So assistant directors used to do all the casting. It was really painful. I messed up actors' dates when I was an AD. So it's a difficult job. We need professionals to take care of it, and I think in spite of all the corruption that there is, it is a well-oiled machine now in Bombay, and impress the casting directors, I would suggest.
For example, we could be sitting in Bombay casting for a film. Only a casting director will be able to tell us, there is so-and-so in Assam who's very good, which we will never be able to find out on our own. And when people like me who are not on Instagram will not find you at all.
So, hello, welcome to Guwahati, Assam. And so my name is Mustafiz Ahmed, and I'm an aspiring filmmaker, and I'm also a screenwriter. So to all the three maestros, I have a question. Like, as a screenwriter myself, I procrastinate a lot. So whenever I sit down to write a screenplay or a story, I get inspiration from random things, random places. But when I begin to write and I struggle to complete the story, so I'm willing to listen to your advice. Like, what advice would you give to a struggling screenwriter who have a writer's block, or maybe any kind of challenges he has to overcome? So regarding the procrastination or the lack of ideas, how do you suggest him or her to go forward?
Actually, it's a combination of things that we already said, the three of us. You show up, you do the hard work. Regardless, list likho. Write a list of the kind of stories. If you're not moving forward on one story, write ideas of what you could write next. Write a bad scene, it doesn't matter. No one is there to read it. Only you are the first reader. You think every day everyone is writing brilliant stuff? No, everyone. But the only thing is, procrastination is a fancy word for not showing up. Every day you have to get up and do this. That's the only solution.
No, I totally agree. I feel, I tend to do it myself, so I'll be honest. I tend to procrastinate. I tend to get into these deep rabbit holes of what I call research. Then it goes from one thing to another, and then 3 days later, you're like, this has got nothing to do with what we actually started off doing. But absolutely bang on advice. Write bad stuff. That you're not sharing it with anyone at that time. I mean, you can always rewrite it, finish that damn script, and then come back to all the bad stuff, and then change all the bad stuff. And by then, hopefully, your writer's block is cleared, or you've found new inspiration or whatever. But get it done, because those drawer full of half-finished scripts is not going anywhere. Yeah, usko khatam karo, then attack it again. Yeah.
Thank you, sir. Thank you very much.
Hello. I have a question. It's about writing. Firstly, I would like to say I do so much understand the importance of having a tribe and how empowering it is. And so most of my work has been in the theatre. And the question I want to ask is, do you see any sort of glaring differences in then trying to write for the stage and writing for the screen, or things to keep in mind when you do start wanting to write for the screen?
After you've written for the stage?
Might not be the same story, but because I'm not written for the screen, but I have devised and collaborated with my tribe. So if you want to jump ship a little bit, what do you keep in mind to do that?
Well, I'm taking it because I've done a little bit of stage. Very little, though. Obvious stuff. First of all, the medium is entirely different, right? And I think, it's a very big difference, but that's the only difference, really, because ultimately, regardless of the form, we are telling stories. So story exists on its own, and any story, perhaps, maybe it's more suited to, say, a novel, or it's more suited to screen or stage, but any story can be told in any form. It can be told on stage, and so I think if you're graduating, if you're moving from stage to film, I think the most important thing to understand is the medium itself, at least a fundamental understanding. You don't need to understand deeper nuances, at least when you're starting out, but a fundamental understanding of what it is, what the medium is, how does it work, the craft of it. And there are various ways to learn it, more than anything else, but by watching a number of films. So that you can make that transition and write for screen. The differences are like the acting is entirely different on stage compared to film. The camera just changes it entirely. So these differences need to be understood, and a story is a story. When I'm writing, sometimes I just write a 25-page or 30-page story, regardless of where I'm going to express the story. So the story has to work, and then it's like driving a car, maybe. It's a bad example, but you get my drift.
I don't know how to drive yet. So.
No, so you need to understand the craft. You need to understand the medium. How do you say this? How do you, like, for example, in stage needs to be, the actor needs to be busy. You don't want to watch an empty stage for too long, right? It doesn't make any sense. But in cinema, that's not true. Just watching a house where the wind is blowing for minutes on end, it's fine. So understand the medium of the craft of it. I know it sounds vague, but the answers will come when you watch a number of films, and you will understand what it is. Yeah.
Read screenplays for films. That also really helps. Sometimes watching the film and then reading it and saying, acha.
Yep.
Penny drop.
Thank you.
Hello, sir. I was just curious about, like, in film there are characters. Through characters you are telling the story, but I've observed this in these generations. There are slow storytellers as well, like Zakir Khan or someone like that. They are telling their own story. They are also writers, but the person is single person. Single person is telling the story. The medium is, I guess, visual also, but somehow they able to create the imagery in our head, and we're like experiencing it like we're watching a movie, but we're just listening to one person telling the story. So if I want to be a writer of that sort, feel like how can I, any insight?
It's perhaps the oldest form of storytelling, but anyway. Yeah, Dastan Goi. Yeah.
Dastan Goi.
Yeah, I mean, the oral storytelling, sitting around a campfire is where the origin of stories is. But are you asking in the context of how do you get a producer for that? I'm
No,
not
I'm
sure. I
just
mean, you can always write the story. Yeah, just
I'm
go
just
go ahead and write it.
asking
Yeah.
in the context of like how should one writer start that like this how can I begin like that journey of
Start
storytelling?
write the story first. The first step is writing that story.
It's like
yeah.
anecdotes, how you tell us. So start off by saying, so you know what happened?
Okay.
Like once upon a time.
Write a story and tell
Just
it to
right.
yourself in front of the mirror, maybe.
Imagine you're
Start
telling
there.
your friends the story. You know, it's that kind of feel like where you're like a kissa.
That's a good advice. We're getting back to the roots of storytelling. Okay.
I was dying to say this. So everybody says you have to write 1,000,000 drafts. And I had a stint at a film school where I was told to write every day. And I was told to write 1,000,000 drafts. But it stopped me from writing because the joy went. And yeah, of course, before that, I was writing short stories. So it was coming spontaneously and I would finish it then and that's it. I never did a long story. But in the film school, this happened. And now I really wanted to say, maybe we could rethink and be spontaneous and maybe so many drafts are not needed because we became writers and artists in order for the divine to speak through us. And that does not happen every day. It speaks through different ways every day. Sometimes it speaks through your cooking. Sometimes it wants to speak through your writing. Sometimes through singing. Of course, I understand that when you work in a long thing and you're working for an industry and there is a commercial aspect to it, perhaps it has to be done. But because everybody says this, so I just wanted to say this because I did face this and now I stopped and I do what comes to me when it comes to me.
So that's great. You found your voice and your expression. It doesn't have to be film. It can be short stories, it can be art, it can be songs, it can be anything. It can be beautiful, whatever makes you excited. So we write multiple drafts not because someone tells us to, because we are dying to.
There must be some creative, exactly. There must be some fulfillment because otherwise you would not do it.
It is a lot of fun, what we do.
Yes.
Let nobody tell you that.
Yes,
It is
I
a
never-
lot of fun. But going through the pain, suffering through it also, that I'm not getting it, tearing your hair apart, is all part of the fun.
Yeah.
You're living a life.
Yeah.
It's all great.
Yeah. But perhaps there have been people who have been not writing, like how does Wong Kar-wai function? Does he...
A lot of money.
I heard...
Yeah, I mean, you're right. Wong Kar-wai works sometimes without scripts. I mean, I think Chunking Express was done without a script, but they had access to a camera, he had access to actors, and they just went out and shot stuff. And if you don't have a producer on your back saying that, "Arey, aaj itna kharcha ho gaya, utna kharcha ho gaya," you can do whatever you like. And of course, something spontaneous can turn into something great. But that's also Wong Kar-wai. And three of us are certainly not.
No. I am sure we could find space for that kind
No,
of...
absolutely, and I wish you well on that journey, and it's an exciting journey, and you need to find that.
No, I mean for
space
all
for
of
you.
us. I don't mean for myself, but I mean for all of us. Maybe.
Well, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, I'm really curious because you're a sort of writers collective. Can you see me? I don't know. Yeah. So you're a writers collective. I'm wondering whether you actually often, if at all, collaborate on scripts. And does it work? And if it does, how well does it work? Or do you sort of bang your heads, if you're trying to collaborate on a script?
Yeah, we have worked together.
Yeah. I mean, I've worked with Sudeep Sharma. Most of my scripts I've worked with somebody or the other. They may not necessarily be here. Personally, I like working with somebody else because you have to find someone who shares the same worldview with you. You may not necessarily share the same ideas, but your outlook towards life has to be similar. Because otherwise, yeah, you're going to have a lot of friction if your worldviews don't match. But personally, for me, I love collaborating with people because it also helps give me a little more discipline as soon as you're responsible to someone to, provide a draft or meet a deadline, and it's fun jamming with someone. Yeah, sometimes being a writer can be an incredibly lonely experience when you're sitting at 4 in the AM and it's you hear the birds chirping outside and you haven't written a single page, and. Yeah, but personally, I love collaboration. And I think that depends on individual preferences or individual sort of attitudes.
Hi, good evening. So I just have a simple question. I mean, why are there so few films made from stories of the Northeast? I mean, is it because of the lack of an audience? Is it because of commerce, or aren't there enough stories here in this region? Because I'm an actor too, and when it comes to getting cast, it's very difficult because we have the problem about Hindi and all that, and it's very typecast the kind of characters that they write. So that's what I want to know.
Sure. Unfortunately, at least I'm speaking for myself. What happens is, like, when I came here and I was reading up, and I like fairy tales and ghosts and things like that. So I'm really excited about the Northeastern scary people. So I've been reading up on them, and I want to. Also, it is the thing of what you don't know, you're afraid to write, right? You don't want to also. It's also cultural appropriation. Punjabi person sitting over there writing a story about the Northeast without having the correct information. I'm just speaking from my point of view. Sometimes it is lack of exposure. We do not know, or maybe some of us don't want to know, and that happens. You write jo tumhe pata hota hai, that kind of a thing. Maybe that's the reason why
And
people
you said
might not
you
have.
grew up in Guwahati, right? I mean, specifically you. I'm just asking.
I was here till I was
mind.
5 years old.
Oh, okay. Also, because I'm also asking the question because whatever little work has been done, stories have been told about the Northeast, it's been very cliched, honestly, like whatever big budget films or OTT stuff. So I just hope like there's more stuff being made, which is more genuine and authentic.
No, I kind of agree with Anvita. It's a lack of awareness. It's a lack of especially in terms of generating original stories. I think there would be a much easier path if one was to adapt a book or a story. And the problem is a lot of stuff is not available necessarily in translation, and especially in English but yeah, you're absolutely bang on. I think it's deeply underrepresented in especially in Bollywood cinema, and there is a lot of scope for stuff there.
We are not primarily a Hindi-speaking region, right? So don't you think that's one reason that?
No, absolutely. You're right about that. And I think, I mean, it might get marginally better. It's not going to address the question that he has asked. I think that question can only be addressed when there are more filmmakers from here, more actors from here, more filmmakers. The industry, the local industry has to be encouraged. There are no Hindi speakers in Kerala, but they are thriving. They have their own industry. So if the Northeast, all the states here, Assam, Manipur, Nagaland, if we can, and there is happening. I have seen some films now. The Assamese cinema has been around for a long time, but now there's films from Manipur as well. The local industry comes up, tells their own stories. I think that is the way to go.
I mean, the average Hindi film doesn't represent Kerala either, or Orissa, or
the average Hindi film doesn't even represent UP anymore. Yeah. So I mean,
yeah, it's a generic North India somewhere,
First of all, I would like to acknowledge all three of you. We are very lucky to have such wonderful people amongst us. And I would start off by saying that Bulbul is one of the few films that really moved me. And I really have a question for Advita ma'am. I have actually been, I feel very lucky to have met the writer, the director of Bulbul.
Thank you.
Ma'am, I have a question for you. When I kind of dissected the film, it came upon me, were you inspired by some kind of folklore or, some kind of literature? I felt you had some things were related to Rabindranath Tagore. I felt in some way, I mean.
So, I read so much. So I'm inspired a lot by what I read. And I love fables and ghost stories from our country especially. And what's called Shakchunni in Bengal, and it's called Chudel up north, which we very casually get called when we are little girls. Oh, Chudel itti tez mat bhago, like that, you know. So yes, so in that sense, I was inspired by these wonderful stories. But so I so I'm like, okay, so her feet are ulta. In the legends, it is that when a woman is wronged, you know how a chudel is formed, formula, okay? If she dies due to violence inflicted on her, even today in villages across many places in India, those women, if they're Hindu, they are cremated upside down and their feet are tied. Or they are buried upside down with their feet tied. And then they scatter mustard seeds all around the grave or the cremation ground. So the reason why they do it is, ki oho aise mari to she will rise again. Okay, so let's put her face down. Let's make it difficult for her. Tie her feet. This is after she's dead. Then they throw mustard seeds, which is like, even if she gets up, because aurat hai na, bikhra hua mustard seed dekhegi, she will start picking it up and, you know, just get distracted. You know how women are. So first you inflict violence and then you throw mustard seeds generally. So you're afraid of her then, because she'll come back powerful, possibly do what you did to her to you. She'll come back more beautiful, more incredible. She'll come back as a fucking goddess. Okay?
Just like you.
So that's the reason. Those are the things that inspire me. I said, okay then. So I'll tell a story about a girl and I'll tie her feet in different ways. I'll tie her feet in bandages while she's still alive. She will rise. Why will her feet turn the other way around? Because someone will break them enough to turn the other way around. But she will rise. You throw as many mustard seeds as you want. She will rise. And yes, Tagore, my God, you know, for me, he wrote the helplessness of women so beautifully and sensitively. And Noshtonir, that thing has stuck in me. I read it ages ago. But it's that one thread of that you put, or even Jora Shanko when you read it, which is the story about the household of Tagore, that they would, those days, all across India, girls would be married off to men, to boys sometimes, and older when if they're zamidars and went abroad to study, so they are now older, much older than the girls. They'll come when they are about 5 to 8 years old, and the other kids in the household will become their friends, so which would land up being the younger brother. Okay? And that dynamic of child marriage is what I used as the suspicion in the husband's mind to, in his head, totally justify breaking her feet. But thank you. I just needed an excuse to talk about Bulbul.
Yes.
Now that we are on Bulbul, मैं public में ये सवाल पूछ लेता हूँ.
Ayo, Kenny, hi.
Right.
Give it up for such a talented director, guys.
Oh, please. Thank you. Just honored by that. Like to tell everybody that these people are some of the most prolific readers. Jodi cinema banaba bisare, then you have to be a great reader. So the question I wanted to ask is, generally in films, we have the biggest villain getting the biggest comeuppance at the end. So Navdeep and Abhishek, would you guys have done this if you had made Bulbul? As in the sabse bada villain, the one who inflicted the most pain on our hero / heroine, gets the most dhamakedar finish. So would you guys have done this if you had made Bulbul? And second, would you have told the story linear, or do you think the non-linear fashion works? And Anvita, why did you go with the non-linear narrative? That's what I want to know.
So let the...
She will only answer all this.
Yeah, because I mean,
I'll answer after this.
No, I'm not. I'm going to say that. I mean, I could never make the film Anvita made. It's a wonderful film. I've never even thought about how I would have potentially made that or not made that. But yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, I would have ruined it. I mean, really. No. I mean, really. Of course, it would have been very different from how Anvita made, and perhaps not even half as good. But you know, when she wrote it, we read it at a very early stage as Anvita's film. So this thought, first draft. So this evil thought never crossed our mind. कि मुझे बनानी है, you know, because it was always her film, and I think in our own little ways, very very minuscule contributions we must have made to her script by saying what we feel about it and what our issues are, and I think she was very generous to accept them. So no, it never really crossed my mind that it is a story that I would have. I mean, it's a story, the kind of story it is. I'm drawn towards such stories. I really liked it a lot, you know. So yeah, good on her. She made it. But that thought never crossed my mind. If I would have done what I would have done, maybe. I mean, if it was my film, they would have just shot each other and finished it.
And yeah, Jobiji is right. All of them gave me feedback, and whatever the film is, it's. ये कल भी बात कर रहा था फोन पे, मैं बता रही हूँ तुम्हें. Whatever the film is it's their feedback, because that was the first draft. I wrote not 1,000 draft. I wrote 17 drafts of Bulbul. With each one, someone had to stop me. Eventually, I was told, "Can you just shoot it now? Stop writing this draft," because the producer kept getting a new draft. "Oh, this is the latest." He said, "But you're shooting in 5 days. Can you stop writing?" I was like, "No, but it can be better." So all of them helped. So on the non-linear, there are a couple of things. Just as you can give me any subject, eventually there'll be a monster in there somewhere. Okay? I can't help it. It's how my mind works. Okay? I don't know about everybody else, but I feel as human beings, we think non-linear. Our mind jumps from one thought, that something that happened to us 7 days ago, to, oh, this childhood thing, oh, tomorrow this will happen, oh, right now phone call. Mind works like this. One thing triggers the next thought. So my mind as a writer works like that. I don't do it deliberately. I never set out to write a non-linear film. It just, even when it was the first draft, even when it was just a story on those, like I said, no, those 5 pages that I wrote, it was non-linear, because it was like, this happened, oh, this little girl, oh, he came back from England. Slightly, mildly dyslexic also, in my defense. My mind jumps. There's little short circuit thing that happens. And that's how I write. I don't know how to. I've tried to make it linear as an exercise once. I tried it in color. It was the most boring thing that I was like, what? I was just like barbad. I was feeling after writing it. Linear, I was like, ho kya raha hai? Kaun hai? It's just how my mind works. And I think the story tells you how it wants to be written. Bulbul, she wanted to come to people, or to me at least, in phases. Look at me when I was a little girl. Okay? And say, see how sad and vulnerable I am now when I'm 21, and see how fucking powerful I am. So it's just like she wanted to do that.
Thank you, Kenny, for such a wonderful question. And with this, we come to the end of the session. It's the Skeptic Tank reunion. Please give a round of applause.
Thank you for having us.
Thank you, everyone.